Next on Currents News, St. Joseph High School is coping with the passing of their beloved principal, Caroline Latham. America's top ally in the Middle East is facing indictment tonight on corruption charges. Benjamin Netanyahu saying it's a witch hunt.
Students at one Catholic academy in Queens are celebrating Black History Month, singing, dancing, even dressing up as historical figures. I'm Tim Harfman, and that story is coming up.
Plus, the reasons why roads are more deadly now than any time in nearly 30 years. The news starts right now.
What do you need from us? What can we do for you?
Experts helping students as they come to grips with the loss of their remarkable principal, Caroline Latham. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. The emotions are still raw tonight after St. Joseph High School was devastated by the sudden passing of their champion. Currents News' Emily Drewby is back from the school. Emily.
Liz, Caroline Latham was only at St. Joseph's for a few years, but she had such a profound impact. Her death has left students and staff heartbroken and trying to cope with the loss.
The halls of St. Joseph High School quieter than usual as students like 9th grader Armani Meza adjust to a life without their beloved principal.
She meant so much to me in my school. I don't know if it'll ever be the same without her.
The school has been doing their best to help those grieving. Guidance Department head counselor Mary Christie explains it started when they broke the news of Principal Latham's death.
We gave them the opportunity to go where in the building they needed to go. Did they need to go talk to somebody? Did they need to go to the chapel? Did they need to be with each other? They're teenagers, and teenagers grieve best with each other.
Extra help to deal with the profound loss continued throughout the week.
You can step out of the classroom whenever you want. You can go speak. There's so many people you could go speak to.
Counselors have been available to students and staff, and there were organized prayers on Wednesday at St. Boniface Church. During the prayer service, students wrote their favorite memories with Principal Latham on these hearts, which are now hanging in the school lobby.
There's a sort of joy that comes from remembering someone who was really an incredible person, and sharing those memories.
Rose Tomasi, a religion teacher at the school, says this sharing of memories has helped a lot of people cope. Another way to remember Principal Latham is by visiting her office, which has been left open, something students and staff have been taking advantage of, many coming in to grab a mint from this bowl that she always kept full, a small act making her loved ones feel close to her again. Students and staff will also have the chance to say their final goodbyes. The school is busing people to the Friday morning Mass of Christian burial. Many kids plan on going.
We have 170 people going on the bus to be present for this Mass.
Counselors tell me students have exhibited true strength dealing with this difficult situation. Liz?
Emily, what has been the hardest, if you can even tell me, for these girls?
Well, unfortunately, her death, it was very, very sudden. There was no warning. A lot of the girls were shocked, and they're having a really hard time because they feel like they didn't get to say goodbye to her.
Oh, I understand that. I really do. Thank you so much for that report. Caroline Latham's family will receive friends as they gather to say their final goodbyes at the Thomas A. Glenn and Son Funeral Home at 20 Lincoln Avenue in Rockville Center today from 7 to 9 p.m. And a Mass of Christian burial will be celebrated at St. Agnes Cathedral tomorrow at 10 a.m. No deal. That's the result of the summit between President Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Their face-to-face meeting collapsed over Kim's arsenal of nuclear weapons. Karen Kafa has the latest from Washington.
President Trump on his way back to Washington from Hanoi without a deal.
I think actually it was a very productive 2 days, but sometimes you have to walk.
The second summit between the two leaders in less than a year still aimed at convincing North Korea's Kim Jong-un to abandon his nuclear program. Top advisors to the president were said to have warned him that the North Koreans would be unyielding on the topic of the sanctions that severely restrict their trade. The president thought he could make more progress face-to-face with Kim, but in the end said he didn't want to make a bad deal.
They wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that. They were willing to denuke a large portion of the areas that we wanted, but we couldn't give up all of the sanctions for that.
There there is no third summit set. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said both sides need some time to regroup, but the summit and weeks of work by each side ahead of it showed some signs of progress.
We made real progress, and indeed we made even more progress when the two leaders met over the last 36 hours. Unfortunately, we didn't get all the way. We didn't get to something that ultimately made sense for the United States of America.
President Trump spoke with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and South Korean President Moon Jae-in after leaving the summit. Both urged continued discussions. In Washington, Karen Kafa, Currents News.
During his post-summit news conference, President Trump talked about making a different deal, this one between Israel and the Palestinians.
But the toughest of all deals would be peace between Israel and the Palestinians. They say it's like the impossible deal. I'd love to be able to produce it. We'll see what happens.
White House advisor Jared Kushner is currently in the Middle East to push the Trump administration's proposed peace plan. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing indictment tonight on corruption allegations. The country's attorney general has decided to bring several criminal charges against him, including bribery and fraud, according to Israel's Ministry of Justice. Prosecutors would have to hold a hearing before Netanyahu is formally charged. The prime minister has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing and now is calling the investigation a witch hunt. President Trump's ex-lawyer, Michael Cohen, was back on Capitol Hill today for more testimony before the U.S. House, but this time behind closed doors. Cohen's latest appearance follows yesterday's public hearing when the disbarred attorney leveled a bunch of accusations against his former client. Today, Cohen spoke to the Intelligence Committee reportedly about Russian activities during the 2016 presidential election. An alarming new report claims that the U.S. now has the highest number of pedestrian fatalities in nearly 3 decades, with local streets being the most dangerous. Camila Bernal has some of the reasons why.
A simple walk could end in the worst way possible.
6,200 of our friends and neighbors are no longer here because they chose to just walk somewhere, and that shouldn't be a death sentence.
The Governor's Highway Safety Association analyzing the numbers across the country and projecting that 6,227 pedestrians died in 2018, the highest number since 1990.
Traffic deaths overall are going down, but yet pedestrians are going up, deaths are going up every year. So it is alarming.
The association also offering insight into some of the causes behind the increase.
We're in bigger vehicles, we're going faster, and the role of alcohol is playing a big role. Not only are drivers many times have had too much to drink behind the wheel, sometimes pedestrians are as well.
Smartphones also a factor, a problem many on the road say they recognize.
It's very easy for there to be confusion and somebody could get hurt.
All your senses have to be there. You don't need to be doing other things.
The GHSA says the numbers can go down with better infrastructure and more awareness.
Take a break, focus on that nice walk, focus on that nice drive, give your mind a break, and it'll help you to get there safely.
Camila Bernal, Currents News.
New construction activity along the U.S. border with Mexico. Instead of building up, workers are tearing things down. Border wall prototypes were being destroyed in the San Diego area yesterday to make way for a new fence. The 8 prototypes were examples of what could be built. The one selected is a new 30-foot high fence with see-through slats.
It's going to be fortified. It's going to be structurally far advanced than what we had.
Customs and Border Protection say the new fencing project will cut down on the spike of people illegally crossing into the U.S. Construction of a secondary wall is set to begin next year. A Texas archbishop is disputing President Trump's claim that a national emergency exists at the southern border. The White House issued that declaration recently as a way to fund construction of the border wall. Now, San Antonio Archbishop Gustavo Siller argues there is an emergency, but not at the border, saying, quote, "The emergency is what people are going through to try to come here, to have peace, to have understanding, to have respect, and to have a genuine welcome." Pope Francis is telling Catholics there is God's mercy, but also his anger. And to stay on the merciful side, Christians should examine their souls.
Non dire la compassione di Dio è grande, mi perdonerà di molti peccati. E così io vado avanti facendo quello che voglio. Non aspettare a convertirti, a cambiare vita, a perfezionare tua vita, a togliere da te quell'erba cattiva. Tutti ne abbiamo.
He added that we should take 5 minutes every day to get closer to God. There's a lot more news headed your way. Don't miss this stage performance by Catholic students in Queens to conclude Black History Month. Virginia's bishops are saying the Senate vote to block the Born Alive Act was appalling. And Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is moments away for the Into the Deep segment tonight. He discusses the Brooklyn Diocese clergy list. And do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We will be right back. The Brooklyn Diocese took a major step to help survivors heal from sexual abuse by publicly releasing a list of clergy who have been credibly accused of sexual abuse of a minor. Bishop DiMarzio talks about the release and reaction with Ed Wilkinson. Ed.
Thank you, Liz. And today we're going to talk with Bishop DiMarzio about a list that the diocese recently released about priests who have been credibly accused of sexual abuse in the diocese here. So, Bishop, first of all, why did you release this list?
Well, clearly we believe that the Attorney General would be releasing a list. So we wanted to release it on our own terms, clarifying what we thought was important to release the list. As you know, this has been done in other states. There are a couple of reasons why we did it now. First, for victims, this is a healing for them when they recognize and see that people who abuse them are actually publicly accused, because this helps them to understand perhaps people didn't believe me and now it is believable, or maybe other people who are abused and never said anything now see the name and maybe will come forward. So that's one reason. The other thing is that we have to be clear about who are the abusers. For some, again, if you listen to some of the media, it just has not stopped. It's rampant. So we recognize it's less than 5% of all the priests we've had in the diocese. It has stopped. We see that the chart makes it very clear that we have not had any abuse cases recently to speak of. Even one is too much, but there's not a lot of cases, or two, and for the last 18 years. So that tells us something about this epidemic that happened. It was a terrible thing. Why it happened, there's reasons why it happened. The New York Times the other day had an editorial saying, well, what in this culture forces people to do this? Well, we didn't force anybody to do anything. And it was a general culture in which we live. We see the time in which it happened. It was the culture that was the culture of the United States that contributed to this kind of an idea.
So you're saying it's not just a church problem?
No, it's not just a church problem. That's clear.
Do you think that people are getting that idea? Because the way the news has been casting it, it's a church problem.
They still have not, I think, recognized that it's a larger problem. Maybe with this new bill and people come forward from other sectors of society, maybe they'll be convinced, but we're always going to be blamed for this as something unique to us, something we perpetrated and something that we covered up. So those are the wrong ideas.
There were different levels of penalties that some of these men have paid. You know, there was laicization, and then some have been released from ministry. What do those differentiations mean?
Well, there's some proportionality there. People who are laicized would be really egregious offenses. Also for lack of cooperation, not wanting to repent, not wanting to cooperate, and others who seem to be more repentant and whose crimes were not as egregious as the others.
What kind of reaction have you gotten? I'm sure you've gotten calls and letters at the Chancery.
Well, not too many actually. I was kind of surprised. There's obviously some positive reaction, and then there's some negative reaction. It's negative on the part of people who see a name there of a priest who they knew and were kind of shocked about it. They feel negative about it. Could it be? And I have to come back and say anybody can do anything. You know, no one's above any kind of wrong at doing. Hopefully, we're all going to do good things, but good people do bad things, and that's what we have to recognize, that these things have happened. And we're not hiding them. We're trying to explain to people why they happened.
One question I've heard people say is, what does it mean to be credibly accused? That they don't understand, what the standards are that are being applied.
Yeah, for us, credibly accused meant that after all the investigation we've been able to do, we believe that it did happen. Again, these are not court cases. They're not tried and with all of these things, lack of witnesses, that happened a long time ago. So you have a different standard you apply to these cases. There's a difference between the cases we have investigated ourselves than those who have come through the reconciliation program, because those were not investigated in depth as our own were. So there could be some errors there. That's why we said on the list we will maybe add more people, or we can subtract people from the list. There may be new evidence that comes in as we go in depth on some of these things. Hopefully anybody we put on the list, we were fairly clear that we were convinced it was credible.
Okay, Bishop, thanks so much for clearing some of that up for us.
Okay.
Liz, back to you.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Bishop DiMarzio. The Diocese of Brooklyn's website now has a special section with all the information in one place. It includes the newly released clergy list as well as videos and resources. Go to dioceseofbrooklyn.org and on the home page, click on Clergy Sex Abuse Crisis Response. The Diocese toll-free and confidential sexual abuse reporting line is 888-634-4499. Virginia's bishops are saying it's appalling the state's 2 senators voted against the Born Alive Act. The legislation, killed in the Senate by a Democrat filibuster, would have protected babies who survived abortion. Arlington Bishop Michael Burbidge and Richmond Bishop Barry Neistout are saying, quote, "It is a matter of common sense and basic human decency to require any healthcare practitioner, when a child is born alive following an abortion, give the same degree of care to preserve the life and health of the child as would be given to any other newborn." Virginia Senators are Mark Warner and Tom Kaine, a self-described traditional Catholic.
She did a Montgomery bus boycott.
That cutie, 4-year-old Sydney Mae Campbell, who portrayed Rosa Parks during a Black History Month play at a Queens Catholic Academy. As February draws to a close today, so does Black History Month. What a send-off for the celebration by the students at Incarnation Catholic Academy in Queens Village, and that's where Currents News' Tim Harfman is standing by. Tim.
Liz, students spent the afternoon singing, dancing, and as you saw a moment ago, dressing up as historical figures. It's all part of helping them have a better understanding of Black History Month in a fun way. Students honor Black History Month by performing for children and parents at Incarnation Catholic Academy in Queens Village.
It's a time to celebrate all the Black people that have done great things for us.
That's second grader Christian Scott, dressing up as the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. Other students also dressed up as notable figures, pretending to be part of a wax museum. That was part of the festivities, along with singing and dancing, poems and skits.
They was ascended to the national astronaut.
4-year-old Sydney Mae Campbell isn't too young to understand the civil rights movement. She's portraying Rosa Parks. On stage with her pre-K classmates, they perform a skit about the Montgomery bus boycott and Parks' fight against segregation.
The man wasn't being nice to her, so she boycotted the bus.
But today isn't the only day students are learning about Black history. All month long, they've worked on projects in their classrooms.
Every day we have a writing prompt on the board, and each day it's a different person. And today was Barack Obama, and he had a quote, and we had to basically write about it and explain its meaning.
For these students, understanding Black history gives them a greater appreciation for the past and continue the fight for equality in the future.
We can do whatever we want, and that we can be free and do good things for the world.
Kids don't understand what racism is, and that's why adults need to teach them. So they need to not contribute to racism and keep the world equal.
And at the end of the show, all of the students sang "Lift Every Voice and Sing" as a show of solidarity. In Queens Village, Tim Harfman, Currents News. Liz, back to you.
Oh, Tim, that Sydney is a cutie pie. Before I let you go, what did adults have to say about this play?
Well, I spoke to Father Chris Bethge, who ministers to Catholics here at Incarnation Church, and he said he couldn't be prouder of the students. Most of the children come from families that are Black and Hispanic, and Father Chris said that the school has always done its part to celebrate that diversity, Liz.
All right, Tim, thank you so much. Still to come on Currents News, how the image of the Holy Family is watching over Muslim babies in Bethlehem. Plus, the story of the world's smallest baby boy. Find out what he weighed and how he survived. We'll be right back. In Bethlehem, a Catholic hospital is doing everything in its power to save high-risk pregnancies where most of their patients are Muslims. The perfect example of inter-religious dialogue with an image of the Holy Family watching over everyone. Melissa Butts has that report.
Holy Family Hospital in Bethlehem is a space for hope in Palestine. Here in this pediatric intensive care ward, most of the babies are children of Muslim mothers. One of them, Rima, gave this image of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as a thank you to the doctors who saved her son's life after a complicated premature birth. This health center, managed by the Order of Malta, is the only one capable of maintaining the life expectancy of premature babies born in Palestine with only 7 months of gestation. Of the 4,500 babies born here each year, about 470 need to go through this intensive care unit.
The law in Palestine under 25 is miscarriage, but here because we respect the soul and we respect the Catholic principles. So if the baby has heart rate in the delivery room, we support him.
In addition to providing quality care for families in Bethlehem, this hospital is a promoter and an example of religious coexistence.
We work together, the half of our employees are also Muslims. The 99.9% of our patients are Muslims. So this makes us proud, so that we are serving not only our people, because if serving only our people, so we didn't do anything.
This hospital, a few feet from the place where Jesus was born, is today a benchmark of professionalism and respect for the dignity of each patient. I truly thank the employees of the hospital because I first was admitted as a C-section, but they stood with me and they helped me through the whole thing. In the end, I was able to deliver normally. The Holy Family Hospital in Bethlehem continues to grow and prepares the construction of a new pavilion for gynecological care. It's a tribute to life right next to the place where Jesus was brought into the world. In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
The world's smallest baby, born in Tokyo last August, has finally been sent home. The baby boy weighed just over 8 ounces, making him the smallest surviving male baby in the world. He was born via C-section after doctors feared his life was in danger. He failed to gain weight during the pregnancy, but after 5 months of nutrition management, he is now a whopping 7 pounds, 2 ounces, and back home. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you so much for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.